What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube. And today I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films and tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. Today I've got the first actually, 2022 big horror release with a big name behind it. Of course, I'm talking about Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, this franchise, more than probably any other, maybe alongside Halloween, has gone through the most reboots, sequels, prequels, threequels, whatever else. It's been such a diluted timeline and such an oversaturated, confusing mess of a timeline with all different continuities that this franchise has been through it, right? We all love a good Leatherface, and there's more than any other major horror franchise, there's been good installments and bad installments in this universe, and almost none of them really work together with any others besides the first one. After the iconic first film in the 70s, which broke a lot of ground and told the story of Ed Gein and kind of was really gritty and slow paced and visceral, and it did a great job, but aside from that first movie, none of the other ones really ever had any continuity with any other films in the series, right? We had the second one, which was a high comedy, over the top movie, and the third one, which was really kind of boring and kind of just no reason to really be there, and the fourth one, which was Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger getting their start in this over the top, ridiculous, nonsensical film that's one of the worst in the franchise. And then you go to a very good remake, and then you go to a very good prequel to the remake, and then you go into, which one was seven? I think 7 was just a sequel to the first one, and then 8 was another sequel to the first one, cutting everything out, and then the 2017's version was a prequel to the original, and now here in 2022 we've got a sequel to the original, which ignores the canon for all the other films. So yeah, that's a mess. So when Netflix announced they were doing a new Leatherface movie, the trailer looked really good, but I was really trepidatious about going into this because, again, every movie gives you something different, and not a lot of that means good in this case. But in this particular case, 2022's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, to differentiate from all the other ones, this is a really solid film. I will talk about why. It's not going to reinvent the wheel or anything, but I think if you like the TCM series, this will be one of your top half of your entries of the 9 films they've had so far. This one might fall in one of your more favorable categories. This was written by Chris Thomas Devlin, who I couldn't really find any other writing credits for him beyond like the last year or two. Nothing special for him, writer wise. But the story was co-written by Fede Alvarez and Rudo Seguias, who did a bunch of things lately. The Evil Dead remake, Don't Breathe 1 and 2. They were involved in that Shark movie as well. I forget what it was called now. The couple years ago, the Shark film they did. They've got a lot of positive credits to their name. So even though they weren't directly involved, they did help produce and they did write the story for this, which gave me some hope. And this was directed by David Blue Garcia, who only had 2 credits that I saw to his name, both in 2022. So this was the first film of his that's ever come out with him as the main director. And this was starring Sarah Yorkin, Elsie Fisher, and Mark Burnham as Leatherface. So this story basically sends like 6 influencers, like maybe 6, maybe 4 or 5, I don't know, a bunch of young adult influencers who are recording, TikToks and YouTube videos and blogs or whatever. They're trying to come into an old dilapidated town to gentrify the town, build some new businesses, build kind of an artist community, kind of band together in a dilapidated area and make a new upstart kind of gentrified town. And that town, of course, is the town where a lot of the famous murders went down 50 years prior in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We see an opening sequence where, and again, I'm not going to get into any hard spoilers here, nothing the trailer or reports haven't talked about, but I will do some spoiler stuff at the end of the review, so spoiler free here, and then I'll do spoilers at the end. They're talking about the reports of Sally Hardesty, the original final girl, from the news, and they're talking about the massacre that happened 50 years ago as these new kids come into town, and all the townspeople are weary of this new group coming in because they're outsiders, and the town is very small and kind of keeps to themselves after the murders. So they come into this town and they go to look at one of the buildings they're about to buy and gentrify, and it's a building in which the mother from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or at least some mothering character, I'm not sure if it's the same one or not, but she talks about how she used to run kind of a halfway house or a reparation place for young orphaned children, like an orphanage for kids that had nowhere else to go, and she's being kicked out of her home. Well, the townsfolk say that the bank did buy her home from her, but she says the house is still hers. In the process of being kicked out, she faces some complications from being kicked out of her house, which then triggers Leatherface to return to his old ways. The dormant Leatherface who's living in this house with the mother now has reason to strike, and he holds nothing back and takes no prisoners in this latest bloodbath. That is basically your story. And of course, I think in the trailer and certainly in the reports, we know that Sally Hardesty has returned to kind of go after Leatherface. So you've got Leatherface attacking these new kids, and Sally Hardesty, the final girl from the '74 movie, trying to go after Leatherface. So those are the moving parts you have in this film. And right away, I'll say this, and it's probably the biggest negative to the film, but it doesn't add anything to the previous lore. This is a basic, simple, fun slasher. If you like basic slashers with some legendary characters that you know from the past, you're going to like this. If you like Leatherface's basic lore and kind of just the demented family past of Leatherface sticking up for his family in his own sick way, you're going to like this movie. If you like a lot of gore and a basic slasher with tension, you're going to like this movie. But if you're looking for this movie to add to Leatherface's lore, to tell more of a story, to have a lot of deep characters with a lot of backgrounds coming into this movie, on either side, on the good guys or bad guys side, you're not going to get it here. This movie's not going to reinvent the wheel. It's not going to add anything to the previous entries in the franchise, but what it does do is keep some continuity, it keeps things simple, and it's a fun, taut slasher. One of the biggest positives to start off with here is that it's very tight. The runtime is only, the whole thing, I think, it says an hour and 23 minutes, but that's with credits. The story itself runs about an hour and 15 minutes. Very tight movie, quick-paced slasher. So it's short, it's to the point, and everything kind of has a reason to be there. So although you're not getting much new story, you're not wasting much time either. So again, if you like fun, bloody, tense slashers, this one's going to be for you. Good runtime, smart, not beating it into the ground, not trying to change anything in the lore, which this franchise often does and makes me mad. Nothing in this lore has changed, and nothing kind of illogical is put into this lore, so I like that a lot. The two sisters I thought were really good. Sarah York and his Melody. She's kind of a in-your-face, feminist, kind of modernized, outspoken badass, where the sister, I can't remember if it's pronounced Leela or Lila, the sister is kind of the dependent, younger sister who's quieter, more shy, been through some things. They both had a bit of a messed up past with their family, but they're trying to get a fresh start here, and you've got a nice balance of the bond between the sisters. That's the only real backstory you get here with these characters. A lot of these main characters, these kids, are basically just like fodder for slaughter, basically, as I like to say. They're just bodies for Leatherface to stack up, but at least you get nothing harmful in these characters. They're kind of just there, but they're not really annoying, they're not really grating, they're just kind of there. So they don't add much to the story, they're just bodies, but they don't offend you either. And I do like the bond between Melody and Lila as the two sisters. They are kind of the strongest backstory point, as you kind of want to root for their bond in this movie. Leatherface, played by Mark Burnham, is really good in this. I think he's one of the better Leatherfaces besides 1 and 3. R.A. McElkoff and the original Leatherface Gunnar Hansen are the two best in my opinion, but aside from them, I really like this portrayal. This might be a divisive thought, but I like the way he's portrayed here. He's a little bit smarter than your average Leatherface, which you can kind of say, he's meant to be an inbred hillbilly, strong, crazy guy, so he shouldn't be able to think too much. But I kind of like the fact that he can kind of recall things in this a little bit. There's a moment with him and Sally Hardesty where he kind of looks at her and thinks for a second. He kind of registers what's happening around him, but he doesn't do it too much that he's that it kind of ruins his backstory. So I guess in a way that's added to his character. He's gotten a little smarter over the years, but I think anybody living for a long period of time, even in seclusion, would pick up some things. He's a little smarter in this, where he jumps out of certain places and kind of sets kind of not traps, but kind of lures the victims a little bit. And he also runs a little bit in this, but I think those things make him scarier and make him a little more dimensional than that basic character. Some fans are not going to like that. They're not going to like adding to that, but I kind of like it because it wasn't overdone. He was smarter and faster than before, but not too much, if that makes any sense. So I thought Leatherface was played very well here. The movie is simple. Again, I said this before. While it's not going to add much to you and it's not going to complete anything or kind of tie any loose ends together, besides the first film, it's going to be a fun, basic movie that gives you the Leatherface and the gore and the tension that you want. Leatherface has got a good look, he's got a chainsaw, and he's not afraid to use it in this film. This being a Netflix film did not hold back in that Leatherface portrayal. Going along with that, good gore. This is probably the goriest entry in the entire franchise, in my opinion, and it's done really well. There's a particular bus scene where Leatherface is going crazy. The kills are a little more innovative. They're not just chainsaws. He's got a little extra power. Leatherface has barely gotten to. He's protected. I think he only has one fight where he gets punched a little bit. He's protected in this. He looks very strong. He's throwing people around. Not only is he using the chainsaw, but he's using different things around him. So he's a little more environmental, and he's a little even stronger than we've seen before. And there's a lot of blood splatter. If you're afraid that Netflix was going to water this down, it did not. It's one of the stronger, in terms of the fight scenes, the violence, the weapons, the diversity in the way that Leatherface is portrayed. This is probably the strongest in the franchise. Cinematography was excellent. This is one of the strongest points in the film. There's a lot of well-colored scenes with the fields and stuff like that, the old farmland, the houses. I like that stuff. There's a lot of long shots where it's going around corners and just holding on him. The film is very quick-paced, so it doesn't hold on too many shots or waste too much time, but when it does linger, you know it's for tension. You know someone's trying to survive, they're in the closet, they're under the bed, they're trying to wait for Leatherface, and they do a good job building that tension, where I feel like some of the other entries that try and do that, do it for too long and they become slow-paced. Even the first movie, the first Chainsaw Massacre, is a very slow-paced film. It doesn't get talked about too much. That not a lot happens until the last third. In this film, it's fast-paced, but the moments that linger create good tension. That's because the film is shot very well. There's good insert shots, there's good close-ups, there's good coloring, and there's a lot of nice, long, tracking shots, down the hall shots. I like the way this is stylized a lot. Sally Hardesty. Bringing back Sally Hardesty. This one kind of goes both ways, because now we've got this new thing happening in horror where the legacy characters come back from the original, and they're older and they're wiser and they're stronger and they're tortured, so they're awaiting all these years to confront their demons again and go chase after the villain, no longer being afraid, right? You see this especially with Halloween 2018 with Jamie Lee Curtis. You're seeing it to a lesser extent, to a younger extent with Neve Campbell in Scream. And you're seeing it here with Sally Hardesty from 50 years ago, played by a different actor, I believe. Played well, she did a good job, but it's kind of a blatant ripoff of Jamie Lee Curtis. Sally Hardesty has been waiting for this, sitting by the TV, watching for reports, carrying weapons around, stalking the victim, stalking the killer, not being afraid to go after Leatherface. So it is kind of directly out of Halloween, but it's done in a good way here. The acting is good and the dialogue is good, and she even confronts one of the main characters saying, "Don't run, it'll torment you forever." So she kind of imparts some good knowledge in this sequel to help the new characters. I like that about her. So nice continuity back to the first movie. I wish they had tied some more loose ends and kind of brought the whole thing together. But as far as first film to this film, this is the best direct sequel to the first film, in my opinion, out of all of them. Because this is better than the very comedic over-the-top second movie in the franchise. And it's better than Texas Chainsaw 3D, which has a lot of continuity and some bad dialogue issues. I like this as the best sequel, in my opinion. Best direct sequel, best number 2 sequel to the original. But again, the one big negative is the fact that it's nothing fresh, it's nothing deeper, it's nothing societal, it's nothing linking his past or connecting him to anything or the rest of his family. So you're not going to get something that changes the world, but you are going to get a gory, well acted, well shot, quick paced slasher film. So if you like this movie, or if you like these kinds of movies, you're going to like this one. I'm giving this film a 6.5 out of 10. And dare I say, I know it's only February, but I think because of the lineage and my connection to the franchise, that I'm going to have this. Out of the 9 films in the franchise, I have this as my fourth favorite out of the 9 in the franchise. So it falls somewhere close to the middle, but in the upper half of this franchise. 6.5 out of 10. Spoiler wise, if you've not seen it, here go the spoilers. They do kill Sally Hardesty off. She takes a big chainsaw to the stomach and then gets tossed across the room. Somehow survives enough to get a couple shots off on Leatherface, but then dies after imparting some wisdom. So I didn't like seeing her killed off, but I guess after getting so old, you kind of have to kill those characters off sooner or later. It gives Leatherface more of a credence, I guess, killing off the legacy characters. Leatherface eventually gets chainsawed or shot or something in the head and falls over, and the sisters survive, you think. But then at the end, he pops back out, kills the sister, does his chainsaw dance holding Melody's head. He has Melody's head in one hand, the chainsaw in the other, and he does the Gunnar Hansen tribute dance from the first film as Lila drives away, freaking out and sad to see her sister die. And then they show a post-credit scene of Leatherface walking back to the original house from the first film. So if this does well, we're hopefully going to get more sequels. And I hope if we do get more sequels, they stay in this same vein, same team, same continuity. Let's not keep rebooting this over and over again. Let's follow some of the same sequels. So those are my thoughts on Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 6.5 out of 10. What do you think? Tell me in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe these videos if you like these deep dives into the franchise. And if you would like more coverage of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and other 2022 films, come back and I'll be doing my franchise ranking pretty soon and possibly a deep dive into the entire franchise, not to mention more 2022 films. I'll see you guys soon. Stay scared.